You know that icky feeling when you realize you didn't show up the way you wanted to? When your reaction to something didn't align with the person or leader you're striving to be? I had one of those moments not too long ago. The conversation ended, the words were out there, and all I was left with was the awareness of what had happened and the question of what to do with it. Now, I'll be honest, it would have been really easy to slip into a shame spiral, to replay that situation over and over in my head and beat myself up for it along the way. But if there is one thing I know for sure, it is that guilt is a terrible teacher. So instead, I stepped back, got uncomfortably curious, and intentionally explored what that moment had to teach me. And I did so with a proven exercise that I often use in my client work. So in this video, I'm going to share the framework and coach you through how to do the same for yourself, so that you can take those moments you're not really that proud of and leverage them to strengthen how you lead yourself going forward. Because the reality is, we don't always get it right in the moment. We're human after all. But self-leadership doesn't end when the moment passes. In fact, sometimes it's only just begun. If we have not yet met, I am Laura Miner, a board-certified leadership coach who helps you fuel your success with the science of self-leadership. Because who you are is how you lead. And the way that you think, act, and motivate yourself shapes the impact you have on the world around you. And leveraging self-leadership in a moment like this is critical. Because while you don't get to go back in time and change what happened, you do get to decide what you do next. And that decision can be the difference between staying stuck in regret or turning the moment into meaningful growth. So let's walk through the steps to take the next time you find yourself replaying a situation in your mind and wishing you had shown up differently. Step 1, start by asking yourself how much of what happened was outside of your control and how much was within it. This isn't about blame, but it's also not about letting yourself off the hook. It's about distinguishing what you could not influence from what you could, because that distinction is where your leverage lies. Step 2, once you've identified the pieces that were within your control, it's time to make reflection an active practice instead of a passive replay. This is where we're going to mine for gold and find those nuggets of wisdom. But we're going to do this through a 3-part self-leadership lens that looks at how you were thinking, how you were acting, and what motivations you were operating from. So, how were you thinking? What assumptions were you operating from in that moment? What story were you telling yourself that may have actually impacted your response? What expectations did you have of how others should have acted? Really put some thought into those questions. And once you have some clarity around how you were thinking, it's time to move into the second part and explore how you acted. For this piece, you're going to reflect on what you said or did during the exchange. What prompted you to respond that way? And don't stop at your first answer here. It's easy to do that, but you want to dig down because there are always multiple layers to this. Then ask yourself, how did your thinking impact your actions. There's always a correlation between the two, but often we don't pause long enough to investigate it. But we really should, because the insight waiting for you there is one of those golden nuggets that we really want to mine for. And once you have more visibility around your thoughts and your actions, it is time to move into the third piece, your motivations. This is actually the hardest one because it requires the most honesty and vulnerability, but it's also the most revealing. Because when you strip away the words and the actions, you're left with a very real and raw question. What motivated you to show up in the way you did? Were you trying to protect your ego and your sense of being right? Were you trying to protect yourself from feeling exposed or embarrassed or dismissed? Were you trying to protect your need to be understood, but instead it came out as defensiveness? Were you maybe trying to protect your boundaries, but instead of setting them clearly, you came across abrasively? Or maybe you were simply trying to protect yourself from discomfort, and so you grabbed for the fastest way out of the situation. This question is not easy. Answering it requires real honesty, and this can be tough. But if you don't do the work to see what was driving you, you'll likely keep reacting from that same place in the future. But here's the thing, when you do see what you were motivated by, a whole new world of possibility and choice opens up for you. Those golden nuggets of insight allow you to intentionally decide how you want to motivate yourself differently the next time. You get to choose what to protect and what to let go of so that you show up in a way that aligns with who you want to be. Now, before we roll into the last piece of this exercise, would you do me a huge favor and hit that like button? It lets me know that my content is hitting the mark, but it also lets YouTube know that these ideas are worth sharing. Okay, the third and final step. Take a look at what you've just uncovered about how you were thinking, how you were acting, and what you were really motivated by. Then I want you to name one tiny improvement you could make in each of those three areas. So one way that you could think differently next time, one way you could act differently, and one way you could motivate yourself that's more aligned with how it is that you want to show up. Because these insights that you just uncovered, they are what empower you to show up differently next time. They're essentially helping you create a framework so that you can show up by design instead of by default. And that, my friend, is self-leadership in action. Now, there is one more uncomfortable question that I want to challenge you to ask yourself. Given what you've just uncovered, is there anything about the original situation that you want to revisit or readdress? Is there anything that needs to be repaired or clarified or smoothed over? Maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but just give it a little bit of thought. By the way, if this kind of coach-led work resonates with you, you might want to check out my weekly newsletter where I offer practical, actionable tools and strategies to help you fuel your success with the science of self-leadership. You'll find the link in the description below. And also, if you want to continue your self-leadership journey right now, then no worries, I've got you covered too. Check out this video right here.